recommended amounts percentage-wise of total caloric intake. For a sedentary person that's not undergoing any kind of active growth, you know, they're not going through puberty, they're not bodybuilding, they're not endurance athlete, they're not that kind of thing, roughly about 12 to 18%, 12 to 18% of the total caloric intake. 12 to 18% of the total caloric intake should come from protein, with the emphasis on the high quality protein sources. The higher the quality of the protein, the less total amount of protein you need to consume. The lower total quality of protein, the more protein you need to consume so that you can get the complement. And we'll talk a little bit later about vegetarianism and how a vegetarian would want to complement certain groups of foods to complement their low quality protein sources to make it a high quality experience. Okay? For endurance or cardiovascular training athletes, basically somewhere in the realm of 20 to 25% total caloric intake from protein, so a little bit more protein for endurance people, and bodybuilders also around the same way, around 20 to 25% or so. There are times where they may go higher percentage-wise because they're on a restrictive caloric intake diet. Generally speaking, the lower caloric intake diet you're on, the higher proportion of protein you need to try to maintain a nitrogen balance, which will not allow you to get into too much catabolism or loss of lean tissue. Problem is when you get into higher proportionate protein diets, that then has its own inherent health risks. So it's not necessarily in your best interest to follow a long-term high protein diet. Reason being is because we said protein is a source of what? Nitrogen. Well, the nitrogen has to be pulled off. The liver does that. It's called deamination. When you take protein or an amine off of the protein complex, it's called deamination. So the body has to do that so that it then can produce urea, which then becomes urine, and then it gets dealt with by the kidneys and you excrete it out. So a lot of protein tends to have a diuretic effect on the body. Lots of protein tends to require a lot of fluid excretion. Right? You'll lose a lot of fluid when you're on a high protein diet, which can explain why some people, when they go to high protein diets, why they lose so much weight on the scale quickly. Because they're urinating a lot more, they're dehydrating themselves through this deamination process. Okay?